But according to his own atheism, morality is nothing more than an animal instinct developed by evolution for the propagation of our species.
God gave men brains larger than dogs so they wouldn't hump women's legs at cocktail parties.
Welcome to the channel. I have a great video to cover from this channel called Ear to Hear, and he says atheists like Joe Rogan and our Pope Dick Dawkins' claims are in fact evidence for God. This dude is a fast-talking journeyman bullshitter who cites Frank Turek, Lobar, Billy Lane Craig, and C.S. Lewis as sources for his apologetics. There's a lot to cover in this video, so we're just going to get right into it. Roll the tape.
God exists. Why would God engineer an animal to be at the top of the food chain that is so filled with greed? Why would God tolerate crime and murder and all the horrible things that we see today?
What if I told you that this argument Joe Rogan just made against God's existence is actually a better argument in favor of God's existence? In fact, many popular atheists are making good arguments that God exists all of the time if you listen carefully.
But if you actually got your morals, if you got your moral values, the Old Testament or the Quran, you would be stoning adulterers to death and stoning people to death for breaking the Sabbath and doing sacrifices, human sacrifices and animal sacrifices. All sorts of horrible things.
Do you hear the contradiction? How about this one?
Old Testament God was all wrath and ego, a petty, vindictive rageaholic.
So you may be thinking at this point, how in the world are these arguments for God's existence? They kind of seem like good arguments against his existence. Well, don't go become an atheist just yet, because in this video, I'm going to prove to you that God exists using these as well as other atheists' own words.
So we're off to a great start. No evidence-based arguments, just some semantics-based bullshit, like quoting Joe Rogan, who acquiesces to everyone he interviews, like Terrence Howard. Is Joe Rogan even an atheist?
Well, they were waiting in line for gunshot victims because so many people were overdosing on horse dewormer.
That was propaganda.
It was a full-on lie. The image that they used was like in the summer in Oklahoma, and yet everybody's dressed in winter coats. It was retarded. The whole thing was so stupid, but so obviously coordinated.
Every atheist I've listened to contradicts their own atheistic worldview in order to make an argument against God. Take a look at these three drawings. Which one looks the best to you?
I don't know. I think the resemblance is rather striking. Wouldn't you agree, number one?
Why did you choose the one you did? You most likely chose the one you thought looked most like the original, the famous Mona Lisa. You knew that each of these sketches were flawed copies of the original masterpiece.
All utterly meaningless in the face of the only question that matters.
In other words, you were comparing them to an objective standard. Now let's replace each of the sketches with a statement from each of our three atheists. Dum 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 dum.
Okay. Remember that girl who sold bottled farts online to lonely old dudes for like $1,000 a pop? If I try selling my farts online, is it the objective standard to use little tiny jars that aren't airtight, or can I use one of those big-ass pickle jars? I got farts on the mind because my video about Matt Powell that I just uploaded, he says the same thing about playing piano.
If I played Claire de Lune on the piano and I messed it up,
why are my drippings with goo?
Joe Rogan says, why would God tolerate murder, implying murder is wrong? Richard Dawkins says that making human sacrifices are horrible things. Bill Maher says that the Old Testament God was a petty, vindictive rageaholic. By the way, I just want to say that there are answers against these claims against the biblical God, which I'll answer later in the video. But first, I just want to ask, Joe, how do you know murder is wrong? Richard, how do you know human sacrifices are immoral? Bill, how do you know petty, vindictive rageaholics are evil?
I get it.
Say it. Say the thing.
I don't really feel like it at the moment.
Say it.
Is it just your personal opinion that these actions are evil, or is there an objective moral standard you are comparing them to?
The Frank Turk is strong with this one because nobody knew killing was wrong before Moses came down off the mountain, and those idiots were already crafting their golden cow new god after completely forgetting about all the Exodus magic like parting seas, plagues, self-replicating food. You know, God wrote this on our hearts, but then people, why do they go around and fuck up? Oh, that's right, free will. I've got the get out of God free will card.
If the atheist says it's just their own personal opinion and they simply dislike murder the same way I dislike Brussels sprouts, then why are they so outraged about it? And why are they all acting like we should all have the same disgust for evil as they do?
He said the thing.
Dude thinks he just hit a home run, and Frank is so proud he just shed a tear, as fucking if not liking Brussels sprouts somehow equates to my disdain for murder. And for reasons, atheists are ripping off Jesus, because without the big book of morals, things happen. Don't worry, he's gonna edify us.
But if the atheist says there is an objective moral standard that everyone should follow,
and what if the atheist says there is no objective morality? Uh-oh.
Now they have a problem. They have just violated their own atheistic worldview, naturalism.
Oh, y'all don't know shit. I'ma learn you though. I'ma learn you.
Here is a great definition of naturalism from the Pope of Atheism himself, Richard Dawkins.
All bow down to the holy Dick. Amen.
There is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pointless indifference.
I'm loving this guy. The problem with cherry picking is it's completely taken out of context. Like, I stumbled the other day and I was like, fuck me. Does that mean I was asking for sex? Wait until we get to his Joe Rogan crescendo clip. It's so dishonest.
We are machines for propagating DNA. DNA neither cares nor knows. DNA just is, and we dance to its music.
I got a wooden spoon!
So, if we as human beings are nothing more than machines obeying our DNA, then where does an atheist like Richard Dawkins explain where right and wrong come from?
Where do you think people get their morals and their ethics from?
Now that's a profoundly difficult question. It's a collection of conversations between people, dinner party conversations, parliamentary decisions, congressional debates, newspaper articles, journalism. All these things conspire together to produce something in the air, something that defines a given century, or maybe even a given decade, with the moral values of that decade.
You're such an idiot, Dick. You don't need any of that bullshit when you got Zap Brannigan's big book of morals. It's so super easy when everyone agrees with the channel mouth to ear and foot infections.
According to Dawkins, morality is whatever a society of a specific decade decides is right and wrong. So then, does that include Nazi Germany in the 1940s? Were the Nazis justified in the Holocaust? After all, the Nazis were voted into power and created laws that made it legal to exterminate the Jews.
This is why we laugh so hard at you, dude. Not only is what you're doing called whataboutism, Hitler batted for your team. He said in a speech that he was a German Christian, not a Roman Catholic. Hitler believed in magic and the occult.
Where's your crown pig?
According to Dawkins' logic, those were the most moral actions for that society in that decade. Except that's not actually what Dawkins believes about the Holocaust.
What do you know? Another apologist pretending to know what other people believe.
There have been steps backwards, admittedly, and the Holocaust is an obvious one.
What exactly does Dawkins mean when he says the Holocaust was a step backwards for the world?
What Dick meant by a step backwards is how could this level of religious genocide happen in this century? But we understand why you're confused. Step backward is what's happening in the U.S. with Christian nationalists rolling back rights and putting their doctrines in public schoolrooms. Let's all agree not to feign ignorance.
A step backwards from what? If everyone is just dancing to the music of their DNA, then we can't condemn Hitler or the Nazis for their actions, because according to naturalism, they were just doing what their DNA told them to do.
And this guy's hero, Frank, said if it's done in God's name, doing terrible shit is A-OK.
Yet, it seems that all human beings, including atheists, live as if there is a universal right and wrong that the entire world should be judged by.
Oh, shit!
The great Christian philosopher Thomas Aquinas,
here we go, a dead bullshitter said something cool a long time ago, therefore delete all of the atheists,
called this universal right and wrong the natural law, which he described as primary moral principles that everyone in every culture for all time can't not know.
Derpy-derpity-derpy-derp.
He described these moral principles as the foundation everyone uses for all moral decisions. But hold on a second, the atheist says.
Can't not know is a double negative, and why are you using confusing language on me?
The moral values of any particular century are markedly different from those of other centuries, even decades. So in the 21st century, we here now have moral values which are really significantly different from 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 300 years ago.
What kind of freak-ass store is this?
Yes, it's true that different cultures across history may appear to not share the same morality, but they share a lot more than you might think. Take the Waodani of Ecuador in the 1950s, for example. This was a tribe that was constantly murdering each other with spears daily.
And you two motherfuckers need Jesus.
They seem to have no value for human life. At least, that's what everyone thought until someone from their tribe escaped, learned English, and explained why the tribe was spearing each other to death. The Waodani were spearing each other mostly out of revenge for previous murders and theft. They knew that it is wrong to murder and steal. They actually did have a concept of moral justice.
Just to make sure I'm following along, they never heard of your God Jesus before, but you're going to give they credit for tribal violence because some rando stumbled into civilization. Hey, I have a brilliant idea. Talk about other gods and how dumb they were.
In a similar way, the ancient Aztecs, who conducted thousands of annual human sacrifices, did so because they believed that the sun needed human sacrifice as nourishment in order to provide the necessary sunlight for their crops to grow. At the root, they did not have different moral principles than we do today. They just had a false perception of reality based on a false religion.
Okay, I'm going to apply that same logic. Because, a false religion did something that they knew were wrong, but they did it anyway. Was the Crusades, Inquisitions, witch trials wrong? Like, did people know it was wrong, but because of a false religion, they did it anyway?
No one can invent a new moral value any more than someone can invent a new color. Any so-called new color must be a combination of the primary colors.
There's never ever been any new ideas, ripping out people's hearts, chopping off their heads.
Shoot them, stab them, drown them, burn them, drop a big old rock on the head.
In the same way, any so-called new moral value must be a combination of the primary moral principles.
Well, the whole damn place was just made out of kindling. So I burnt it down.
So then if there are primary moral principles that are the same across time and across cultures, then the question becomes, where do we get these primary moral principles from? Our DNA or God?
I guarantee that guy's still a virgin.
I'm not a philosopher. Was that a false dichotomy? I'm sure there's an argument to be made for nature versus nurture. We could take identical twins, separate them at birth, bring one of them up in the way of the Lord, and drop the other one off on a cannibalistic tribe. Seriously, tabula rasa. We are born blank slates, and our genetics play a role too. But we are products of our environment.
As atheist Michael Roos says, morality is just an aid to survival and reproduction. Any deeper meaning is illusory.
I've never heard of Michael Roos before, and follow me for a second. Apparently, he thinks science and religion should reconcile, as if they cheated on each other and should stick together for the sake of the children. He had a falling out with Dick, and said that Dick couldn't pass an intro to philosophy class. He said, "I'm proud to be the focus of the invective of the new atheist." These idiots' ears talking about aren't my paramours. They aren't cheating on Jesus with me, dude.
Many atheists only believe what can be studied through the scientific method. For this reason, atheists must believe that morality is just an illusion, because there is no such thing as a morality molecule that they can put under a microscope and study.
If I could save time in a bottle.
On top of pretending to have answers for everything, apologists lie about science and strawman it by saying stupid shit like there's no morality molecule. The problem is science canon does explain things like ethics and morality. Evolution explains why and where and when we work together with other tribes. The Bible says where and how you can get your slaves, and it teaches attrition. You know, you kill your neighbor's men and then take their wives as your wives. Anyway, I digress. Let's shift gears and find out more about what atheists have to believe in. Also, it's not just atheists, it's everyone who doesn't think exactly like this dude does.
They believe that just like animals, what we call morality is nothing more than what they call a herd instinct. In the animal kingdom, certain animals sometimes appear to display selfless actions for the good of the herd. Atheists believe this is an instinct that has developed over time as a result of evolution.
Boy, I screwed up. I'm in dog heaven.
I think I see what the problem is. Dude's now cherry picking from animals that aren't acting out of the ordinary. I mean, who would have thunk that the thing with the giant horns wasn't just having them for decorations? The lone zebra cut off from the herd bucking and trying to run away, that's what they do, dummy. It isn't like another zebra came to save the day. The argument's so dumb and it's all they have. Now, I've read the Chronicles of Narnia and I'm wondering if this is a C.S. Lewis type of argument.
These selfless actions help to keep the species as a whole alive and reproducing. But is that really what's happening when we as humans are kind and loving to one another? Is morality really just our herd instinct keeping our species alive and reproducing?
What am I? I ain't no physicist, but I knows what matters.
I'm not impressed at all with this incredulity. Other primates exhibit the same behaviors, including greed, conflict, deception, love, loss, and so on. My problem is the world makes sense without adding this God character to the mix. I get it, this dude needs his security blanket, because without it, he'd be a psychopath. If he grew up in either of those tribes, he'd hate the other one, and we all would if we were taught to be that way.
To be or not to be, who's asking?
If this is true, then we don't have to be any more moral than animals. If a sea lion forcibly mates with another sea lion,
The Beachmaster backs up for nobody.
Sea lions have an alpha called a beachmaster, and guess what, dummy? He's not forcing himself on the females, and you comparing it to what atheists would do without your God is ridiculous. It's so dumb.
to reproduce more sea lions for the growth of the herd, then wouldn't that be the most moral thing for humans to do also?
This really isn't the slam dunk that they think it is. I've mentioned attrition, and I've heard Christians and Catholics say having lots of kids is the best way to strengthen their religion. Why else would pulling out of your dead brother's wife be a death sentence from their God?
So then why is this atheist so upset when a human being does the same thing?
You see? You believe it now?
Well, yeah, sure. Why would he make that up?
Fraulein Freitzel, locked in a dungeon 24 years, raped most nights by her father, 7 children of me. One of them died, perished. She prayed, she beseeched heaven. Why did heaven do nothing?
I'm sorry, but this fucking guy can't actually be this stupid. I can see Frank Turk's logo in the corner, and yeah, if the standard practice was to lock up our children as sex slaves, then it would be normal. But let's see what Frank has to say. Oh, wait, we're not going to get to see Frank's response, but it's a great question. Let's find out what us atheists think.
This atheist asks a very important question that I will briefly answer later in the video.
Ridiculous!
He, along with everyone watching this video, would agree that the man that he described did unspeakably evil things to his daughter. But according to his own atheism, morality is nothing more than an animal instinct developed by evolution for the propagation of our species.
God gave men brains larger than dogs so they wouldn't hump women's legs at cocktail parties.
So then why should we judge this man's actions any differently than we would judge the sea lion who does the same thing if we are nothing more than mere animals?
Gerald! Yeah, Gerald.
Is it just me, or is everything that comes out of this dude's mouth stupid? If it was normal to lock up our daughters as sex slaves, then there wouldn't be an issue, dummy. What we can't do is let someone get away with an atrocity and then just say that they're sorry, they found your God, and then let them loose on civilization. Oh, we apologize, sir. We didn't know you were sorry.
Isn't this man just dancing to the music of his own DNA? Here's how the average person experiences morality.
I think I remember this part of the video, and we're going to go with the convoluted trolley car problem that Christians get right 100% of the time, or something really dumb.
Imagine you are walking down the street when you suddenly hear a woman scream. You turn to see the woman being attacked by two men. Your first instinct is to help her. This is your herd instinct telling you to help your own kind. But then this thought comes into your mind.
Leave it be. She's bad business.
If I step in to help this woman, I myself could get hurt or maybe even lose my life. This is your self-preservation instinct now speaking. Up to this point, there can be a good argument made that animals may experience similar instincts when they see similar situations occur in the animal kingdom.
Dogs like to play fetch, dude. Left to his own devices, he would have killed the deer and ate it. He's probably a bird dog or a rabbit dog who spooked a fowl and then chased off after it while the hunter was telling it, "No, come back, stop, fucker." And now the dog's shitty because it's going to be hunting deer all the time.
However, human beings have another thought that crosses their mind. The next thought you have is not an instinct at all. It's outside of both your herd instinct and your self-preservation instinct. It is what many call your conscience telling you that it is morally right to help the woman rather than save yourself.
You serious?
Dude's just never been in a situation ever where he didn't have time to think about and reflect on his feels. I was at this shithole motel once in North Carolina, and I seen this pregnant chick get smacked in the face, and she's like, "Can I use your telephone?" And she stole the money out of my wallet. I remember thinking, thank God she didn't take the wallet, but in fact she left it on purpose so I wouldn't find out about it until the following day. I'm almost positive the dude I seen smack her in the face was her previous mark.
And it is this conscience which is separate from the first two instincts that naturalistic atheism can't explain.
Okay, dude, if you say so, but the problem is science explains all of that stuff you've been talking about. What's really a huge shock is how you're saying it with such confidence.
Your conscience is pointing to a standard that is outside your own biological instincts.
Sounds like Michael Jackson. That's outside of your biological instincts. You bend over and spread your cheeks.
Even Joe Rogan admitted this recently.
Here comes the crescendo.
A lot of people's moral compass and the guidelines that they've used to follow to live a just and righteous life.
What a nightmare.
Has come from religion. And unfortunately, a lot of very intelligent people, they dismiss all of the positive aspects of religion because they think that the stories are mere superstitious fairy tales that, they have no place in this modern world, and, we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your old moral compass and we all have one, and that's not necessarily true. We need Jesus. I think for real.
There was a really weird cut, and Joe's drinking beer and probably smoking that tweed. He's got this shit-eating grin on his face, and he burst out into laughter. Cherry pick clip was obviously cherry picked.
Fairy tales that, they have no place in this modern world, and, we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your old moral compass and we all have one, and that's not necessarily true. We need Jesus. I think for real.
The only logical explanation for the existence of this objective moral law is the existence of a divine moral law maker, God.
You cursed rat! Look what you've done!
That could be true if there wasn't these rainforest tribes murdering each other over generational vendettas and shit. Come on, dude. Try harder.
The Bible even tells us that not only did God create and define morality, but he also placed that morality in the heart of every human being.
Yeah, we know that's what your big book of fairy tales says, but there's so much evidence that if we chucked it in the fucking garbage, the world would be a better place without it.
Because God exists, he gets to define what our value and purpose is.
Oh, he does he? What about all the times he didn't? Dude's just making up shit as if everyone thinks it's true.
For example, he says that human beings are valuable to him, therefore it is immoral to kill them for selfish gain.
People are a resource.
Now I want to briefly address the important question that Joe Rogan and other atheists had about why a good God allows evil and suffering in the world.
People are the foundation of what we are building here!
The short answer is that God created human beings with free will. Each of us has the choice to choose to follow God's moral law or not. The alternative would have been to create robots with no option to choose good or evil, and therefore no real ability to truly love others or God out of our own free will. Many people look at the evil in this world and are angry at God, like the atheists in this video,
Blighty, blighty, blarg.
who purposefully try to commit what the Bible calls the unforgivable sin.
Oh shit, I forgot I'm angry at God because he's evil. I'm a blasphemer and one of those idiots who's damned to the lake of fire, a place that I don't think exists, just like heaven. It blows their mind that we don't go around singing about the big rock candy mountain. What they should try to do is apply their philosophy to that silly place and realize how ridiculous it actually sounds.
In the big rock candy mountain, the jails are made of tin.
Click here to find out what they did and what the unforgivable sin actually is.
There's a lake of stew and a whiskey too. You can paddle all around them in a big canoe.
Dude, what are you pointing at? There's literally nothing there. Also, blasphemy is the only unforgivable sin, so I'm totally screwed even if I wanted to believe. Also, that's some bullshit, saying there's objective morals, but because of the free will, yada, yada, yada. You know God writes this on our hearts and stone, thou shalt not kill, unless it's self-defense or an order from your best guide daddy. If you made it this far, I'm sorry it was so long. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and definitely let me know what you think about it all in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Be well.
Be fucked.
Johnsman, you are fined 1